I know it took me forever to bring back Epstein's life, but I was doing some digging and research to bring you the real facts. Here is another story for today. Sit tight, like, share, follow, because your support keeps me here and able to continue making content for you. It is so important. Thank you all so much. People keep asking who the billionaire was who gave Jeffrey Epstein money, but the truth is several ultra-rich, powerful men handed over massive amounts to him or paid him big fees for so-called financial services. And that's how he built his mysterious fortune, according to all the investigations and financial records that have come out. His wealth didn't come from thin air. It came from advising or managing money for some of the richest people on the planet, and here are the main ones that keep showing up in reports. First, there's Leslie Wexner, the guy who founded the company behind Victoria's Secret. He was Epstein's biggest early backer by far, and people say Wexner gave Epstein power of attorney over his massive fortune, letting him control huge piles of cash. Estimates say Epstein got more than $200 million from Wexner over the years, and he even got to live in a fancy Manhattan mansion that Wexner eventually transferred to him. Then there's Leon Black, who paid Epstein over $150 million between 2012 and 2017, just for tax and estate planning advice, and some probes suggest the real total hit around $170 million. Glenn Dubin, the hedge fund manager, had financial and social ties to Epstein, and his firm reportedly paid millions for introductions and other financial help. Steven Sinofsky got named in testimony as one of Epstein's wealthy clients who paid for services. Ehud Barak had business and money connections to Epstein too, according to what investigations found. And the Rothschild family also shows up as one of the rich names who paid Epstein for financial work. The key thing to remember is that most of these payments got described officially as legit fees for things like financial advising, tax planning, or investment help. None of the investigations have proven that all these people were mixed up in Epstein's awful crimes, even though their close links to him turned into huge scandals and raised tons of questions after he got arrested. It's disgusting how someone like Epstein, a convicted predator, could get this deep into the world of billionaires and keep getting paid enormous sums while hiding his real activities. But the records keep exposing these connections, and people deserve to know the full story without any filters or excuses, because too many powerful folks stayed silent or looked the other way for way too long. Everyone needs to hear this because some big banks did catch suspicious, or maybe even illegal money moves tied to Jeffrey Epstein. But the huge problem investigators keep hammering is that those alerts came way too late, often years after the cash had already moved or even after Epstein was dead in 2019, which makes you wonder what the hell was going on for so long. From all the probes and financial documents that have come out, here's the real picture on what these banks knew and did or didn't do. First, JP Morgan Chase spotted over $1 billion worth of shady transactions, and after Epstein died in 2019, the bank sent a suspicious activity report to the government flagging more than 4,700 transactions that added up to over $1 billion, with some of those payments looking like they could connect to sex trafficking stuff, including wires to women and big transfers going international. People are furious because the bank had warning signs for years, but kept handling his business right up until 2013, when they finally cut him off. Then Deutsche Bank took him on as a client after he left JP Morgan, and their own compliance people started raising alarms back in 2015 and 2016 about deals moving money overseas that smelled like possible trafficking activity, and later regulators slapped them with a $150 million fine exactly for screwing up the monitoring of Epstein's accounts and not catching or stopping the risky stuff. Bank of New York Mellon handled hundreds of suspicious transfers, where investigators say Epstein pushed around about $378 million through 270 wire transfers, and a lot of those wires had no real clear, honest business reason and showed classic signs that could point to money laundering, yet the bank sat on it and didn't report them until 2019 way after most of the moves happened. Bank of America also ended up filing reports on suspicious activity covering around $170 million in transactions linked to Epstein. But those flags only came years after the payments went through, which has lawmakers asking tough questions about whether the bank broke the rules on when you're supposed to report this kind of thing. The big point that keeps coming up from investigators is that, yeah, these banks did report some suspicious stuff eventually, but the real outrage is the red flags were staring them in the face for years, including massive payments to young women that should have screamed trouble, and yet the reports often got filed super late, sometimes only after Epstein was gone, so the focus isn't just on the money coming in or going out, it's on why these huge financial giants let hundreds of millions or even billions flow through their systems for so damn long before they bothered to blow the whistle properly. It's sickening to think how a guy like Epstein, a known predator after his earlier conviction, could keep getting this level of banking service from some of the biggest names in finance, letting him move cash freely while victims suffered, and the system dragged its feet on sounding alarms that might have stopped things sooner. We can't keep pretending powerful institutions didn't play a role by looking away for profit or convenience, because the records show they had the info and the tools, but too many times chose not to act fast enough, and that's why people demand real answers and real changes so this never happens again. It's heartbreaking and infuriating that the kind of sick criminal behavior Jeffrey Epstein was tied to hasn't gone away just because he died in 2019, because human trafficking and sexual exploitation are still raging problems all over the world right now, hitting millions of innocent people every single year. We have to be crystal clear and separate two totally different things here so no one gets confused. First is whether Epstein's own personal trafficking network and operation are still running exactly like before, and second is whether the same type of disgusting crimes he committed are still happening everywhere. On the first question, there is zero confirmed public evidence from any investigations that Epstein's specific organized ring is still active today after his death. Authorities dug deep into his associates, his money, and his connections, and while his longtime partner Ghislaine Maxwell got convicted in 2021 for her role in recruiting and abusing underage girls, many other links got looked at hard, but nothing has come out publicly proving that exact same network is carrying on business as usual. On the second question, though, the answer is a brutal yes. Those exact kinds of crimes are still very much alive and destroying lives. Daily human trafficking and sexual exploitation are massive global issues, according to solid reports from groups like the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. Millions upon millions of people around the planet are trapped as victims in trafficking networks that cross borders and operate in countless countries. These victims include women, men, and especially vulnerable children, and the crimes cover horrible things like forced sexual exploitation, forced labor, online abuse, grooming kids through social media, and sneaky recruitment tactics that prey on the desperate or trusting. What made the Epstein case explode into worldwide headlines wasn't just the crimes themselves, but how it pulled back the curtain on extremely rich and powerful circles, where abuse allegedly went on for years with big names involved, and how so many institutions, banks, law enforcement, and high society completely failed to shut it down much earlier, despite all the red flags, which allowed the nightmare to drag on way too long and silence victims who deserved protection. That massive publicity forced the world to pay attention, and it put real pressure on how trafficking really works behind closed doors, why victims get ignored or threatened into silence, and how power and money can shield predators for far too long. The hard truth today is that even with Epstein gone, the battle against these monsters is far from over. Dedicated law enforcement teams, brave nonprofits, and international groups are still out there every day working hard to spot and rescue victims, track down and smash trafficking rings, put the real offenders behind bars, and build better ways to stop exploitation before it starts. From stronger education to tougher laws to cutting off the money that fuels it all. Bottom line is no one has proven Epstein's exact setup, survived his death, but the evil he represented, the buying, selling, and abusing of human beings, especially the young and powerless, is still happening in dark corners everywhere. And that's why we can't look away or get comfortable because cases like his rip the mask off how the powerful sometimes protect their own and let victims suffer in silence. And until every last network gets crushed and every victim gets justice, the fight has to stay loud, fierce, and unrelenting. No excuses, no backing down. Love always, Maria D.C. Santiago.
A world against humanity, a world in the dark, a rabbit hole without an end, and they own it all. We have nowhere to go, nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. They watch us day and night, we are never left alone.